Hey everybody, I'm here today to show you a really simple and cheap do-it-yourself project for homeowners. Now I recently stained my floors, my hardwood floors, to be quite dark. And because of that, because of the change in color to a darker stain, these floor registers don't look good on the floor anymore. They didn't really look good to begin with, but after staining my floors, it gives me even more of a reason to make these look a little bit better. So instead of going out and buying new floor registers, I figured that I could repaint them myself for a much cheaper price. So all that you need for this is some sandpaper. I will be using 100 grit sandpaper for this, but you can sort of, choose whatever works best for you. But I'm using 100 grit once again. You'll also need some primer. I have this can of primer right here, and then some actual color to, spray paint onto the floor register. So a can of primer spray paint and a can of color spray paint along with some sandpaper. You can choose the grit. Let's get right to it. All right, everyone. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is scuff up the area of the floor register that you will be painting so that the primer and the spray paint, the color spray paint, will stick to it. So I have my 100 grit sandpaper right here. I'm just going to fold this up just like that so that it's a little bit easier to work with. And then I'm going to use this sandpaper just to scuff up the floor register. And I will be painting the top and, inside of this floor register. So I'm going to use it to scuff it up. I'm going to take the sandpaper and literally just sand it down a little bit. Your goal is not to completely take off, any of the color, anything like that. But just scuff it up enough so that the paint and the primer will stick to it. So take that sandpaper, work your way around the floor register, get in between each of those spots, and just barely scuff it up so that the primer and the spray paint will stick to it. Alright everyone, now that I have used the sandpaper to scuff up the floor registers right here, I'm going to take my can of primer, my spray paint can right here of primer. I'm going to shake it up to make sure that all the pigment is completely mixed in, and then I'm going to spray a very, very thin coat of primer on the floor registers. And I say thin because the point of this is just simply to prime the floor registers for the paint. So I like to go really thin on the primer and just try and cover almost all of the areas. But I'm not very, very specific. If you miss a small area, that's definitely okay, at least in my opinion. So I'm going to take the can of primer and I'm just going to lightly go on. And a technique when spray painting is to let go of the nozzle once you reach the end of the area that you will be spray painting. So as you can see, I'm not holding the nozzle down and going shh. I'm just letting go of the nozzle once I've reached the end of the area that I will be spray painting. So just apply a very thin coat of primer along all of the floor registers, basically the areas that you will be painting, and then give that primer some time to dry. So check on the spray paint can for advice with regards to how long you should leave it. And yeah, just take note of how long it has to dry and give it that amount of time to dry. Now that I've given the primer enough time to dry, it is time to apply the actual color to the floor register. So as you can see here, I have a can of brownish spray paint, brown spray paint I should say. I'm going to take the cap off just like this, give it a nice shake so that once again I can mix up the pigment inside of it, and then I'm going to apply the spray paint a very nice thin coat using the same technique that I've shown you in the last part of this video. So just releasing the nozzle towards each end of the floor register. And I say I'm applying a thin coat because I will be applying a second coat later. So I like to go fairly thin for the first coat and then a little bit thicker on the second coat. So once again, I have my brown spray paint, give it one more shake, and just apply it to the floor registers like that. And slowly but surely, a nice thin coat, and try and hit every area. Once again, I will be doing a second coat on these floor registers, so I'm not as crucial about hitting every single area because I can hit, all of the areas that didn't get hit with paint on the first try, I can hit them on the second coat. So I'm not as crucial on myself, but you can already see that they look a lot better. So I'm just going to continue with this process on these other floor registers, and then I'm going to give it enough time to dry, and then once it's dry, I'm going to come back and apply the second coat of brown spray paint, but I will be filming that, so you'll get a chance to see that as well. You know what, I apologize. I was watching over the last little portion of the video that I made when I was applying the first coat of spray paint, and I realized that you couldn't really see the color of the floor registers because my shadow was, blocking the light from hitting them. So just to give you a quick look, this is what the floor registers look like right now. I've just finished applying the first coat of the brown spray paint on them, and as you can see, they are still soaking wet. I've literally just finished applying it. This is what they look like, and I will be back shortly once this coat has dried and I am ready to apply the second coat. Now that the first coat of the colored spray paint has dried, well, at least dried to touch, so it's, fairly dry, I'm going to apply the second coat of spray paint. So I have my can of brown spray paint right here. I'm going to give it another shake, and then I'm going to spray it on. And this time I'm actually going to spray it in the opposite way. So before I was sort of going this way, now I'm going to go this way. And that'll just ensure that I get pretty much every single spot. So the same process, releasing the nozzle towards the end of the spray, just very simply like that. Working my way down the floor register. And you know what, you're just giving it an extra coating right now, an extra coat. For the most part, you should have hit, almost all of the areas with the color during the first coat. This is just, ensuring that you get every single spot. So I'm going to go through this process with each of these floor registers, giving them a second coat of the colored spray paint. And then what I'm going to do, I only did 3 for this part of the video. I'm going to do the other 2 once I shut the camera off because, you've already seen the first 3. You don't need to see the last 2. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let them sit for 24 hours. And that will ensure that all of the spray paint is completely dry. And once I've let them sit for 24 hours, then I'm going to take them and I'm going to obviously put them back into the floor. Well, into the hardwood floor vent sections. So I'm going to continue doing these last 2 right here. I'm going to let them sit for 24 hours, and I will continue this video once they're completely dry, which will be in 24 hours from now. So this is what the floor registers look like now that they have been able to dry for pretty much a full 24 hours. And as you can see, they turned out to be a really nice color, a nice dark brown. And I've brought them inside from the garage so that you can see what they look like when being compared to the actual color of the hardwood floor of the new stain that I have applied. So as you can see, they match the floor much better than the previous colors did, that gold color and that silverish color that the floor registers were originally. So after this simple process of a very light sand and spray painting some primer on them, and then also spray painting 2 coats of colored spray paint on them, I have completely changed the look of these floor registers for a very minimal cost. So it's a very easy do-it-yourself project that, almost any homeowner can do. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching.